Hey guys, just going to go over our next concept here, measures of variation. So your last concept dealt with measures of center, and so that kind of told us where the center of our data was. This is going to tell us how spread apart our data is. So there's a couple things we're going to look at. I'm just going to go through the basic stuff. The first thing we're going to talk about is looking at a set of data in a data plot. You'll either get your data in a dot plot like this, or sometimes I'll put it out in a list. So let's go ahead and make a list of this data just based off this dot plot. And I'm just going to go ahead and list everything. So I've got 1, 3, 3 4s, 6 5s, 4 6s, and 1 7. So there's my data. And we're going to look at a couple things. So the first thing that's going to tell us about the spread of our data or how far apart our data is called the range. And that's something that you guys have worked with before. That one's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to go my high minus my low. My high is 7, my low is 3, therefore my range is equal to 4. So that just tells us how spread apart our data is. We have a range of 4. It spans 4 different data points. Our next one is going to be our IQR. And our IQR stands for our interquartile range. And quartiles are fourths. So if I were to go through my data here and find my median, like I did in my measures of center, my median is going to be 5. Okay, and so that's split right in the middle of all my data. My quartiles are going to be half. I have half my data here and half my data here. My quartiles are going to be split between here. So I'm going to find the median of just this section. So I go there, and my quartile, my upper quartile is there. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. And my lower quartile is going to be there. So I have a lower quartile at 4.5. My upper quartile is going to be at 6. So my inner quartile range is just the distance from here to here. So it's my 2 quartiles split in half. Or the difference of my 2 quartiles. So my IQR, my interquartile range, is 1.5. That just tells us where half of our data is. And then the last thing that we're going to talk about in this concept is called standard deviation. And standard deviation can be a pretty complicated concept, but basically it's just the average distance away from the mean or the average that all my points are. So it's a really kind of a complicated way of figuring that out. Now, there is a long process we could do by hand to do this, but we are going to, I'm going to take you to a website, if I can figure this out. And we're going to use the website to calculate that. So we're just going to search for calculate standard deviation. And the first option that pops up is standard deviation calculator, and it's pretty easy to use. So we'll just go to there. It takes you to this page right away, and it gives us a list, and we're just always going to have a population. But we just are going to go ahead and enter our numbers in. So our numbers were 3, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 4 6s, and a 7. And so just put a comma in between each number and then go ahead and click calculate, and it gives us our standard deviation of 0.99. So our standard deviation is about 1. So that means on average our points are about 1 unit away from our mean. And so that's how I'm going to have you calculate it. There is by hand, and you can tell by there that that's not a fun formula. We're just going to use the calculator version, so just use that. And so our standard deviation is about 1. Okay, probably the most complicated part of this concept is finding the standard deviation. We're just going to use the calculator for that. So just use something online and plug in those numbers so you can do that. Okay, the other way you're going to see it is possibly off of a box plot. This is something you should have seen in junior high, maybe 5th or 6th grade. We talked about box and whisker plots. I'm just going to go through the main pieces and what we can find from here. So in this box and whisker plot, it doesn't give us the individual data, but it does give us some important stuff. This value is our max value. It's our largest value. So we know that our largest value is probably about 70. This is our min. That means that our smallest value is probably about 25. Inside the box, the center line is going to be our median. So we know that our middle number is approximately 50. And then these two lines tell us our upper and our lower quartile. Sometimes you'll see it as Q3 or Q1. So those are the same things we found in our dot plot earlier. And so we can figure out a couple things just from looking at those values. So my min, we're just going to write this all out so we see it. My minimum value is probably about 25. My Q1 value is looking like 40. My median is 50. My Q3 is 55. And my max is 70. Sometimes your box plot won't give you a great picture like this where it's exactly like that, and you'll just have to use an approximate. So we're going to find two things from here. We're going to find the range. That's pretty straightforward. Remember, our range is just our high minus our low, or our max minus our min. So I'm just going to go 70 minus 25. The range for this set of data is going to be 45. And then the other thing I can tell from my box plot is my IQR. And so remember that my IQR is just Q3 minus Q1, okay, or my upper quartile minus my lower quartile. And this one, it is 55 is my upper quartile and 40 is my lower quartile, so my IQR is 15. And so those are the measures of variation that you're going to use in your concept. Pretty straightforward. Remember, if you have any questions, that you can get a hold of me and we can video chat to make sure you're getting it figured out. All right, good luck.